sober enough to know what was going on?
Yeah, well, some of it. I remember bits and pieces here and there.
Well, what happened next?
Well, when we got to the hospital, they took her out of the ambulance and they moved her down to the...
It seems as if I've heard this story 100 times. The names and faces change, but everything else stays the same. They had too much to drink. There was an accident. Somebody's taken to the hospital. And then the police investigation. Mike and Kathy were drinking. They had a serious accident, and they were referred to our program. Do you know why you're here?
Sure, but I haven't got any drinking problem. I just got drunk that once.
That's the attitude most kids have when they come in. I haven't got a drinking problem. We try to see that they don't leave feeling the same way. We try to help them find out for themselves what part alcohol played in their troubles, and in their lives generally. Some of them even discover they're full-fledged alcoholics. I should know. Like many of the counselors in this program, I'm a recovered alcoholic myself. When did you start drinking that night?
Pretty early. It was the first date I had after we moved here, and I was sort of glad when Mike asked me. He seemed nice, and he hung around with all the really popular kids. I snuck a bottle of vodka from home, and we started on it right away. I could always get all I wanted, no problem. By the time we got to the disco, we were both pretty high. I'd really loosened up, and I began to feel as if I'd known the kids all my life. We had a lot of fun with the bottle, pretending it was like being in a speakeasy during Prohibition.
I was getting plastered, more than I've ever been before. We started to dance,
But you were pretty far gone.
So are you.
Yeah, I guess I was, but it was you who fell all over the table.
Oh, it wasn't all that bad. I'd had it with that place anyway. And when they began to hassle us about drinking, we left.
We've been having such a great time, and we were really starting to feel good.
It made me mad the way they spoiled everything. I wanted some more booze, but we'd already finished the vodka. So Kathy said that we could go to her house and get some more.
My father was away, as usual, and my mother was asleep upstairs. We really had to sneak around, like a couple of burglars.
Ouch! I popped my shin.
Be quiet, you wake her up. They'll never know the difference.
I was still burned up about that guy in the disco. But anyway, we had the bottle, so we took off.
To do some serious drinking.
Well, yeah, sort of.
Do you usually drink that much?
No, but I just like to have a few beers once in a while. Have a few laughs. Just feel good, you know what I mean? Well, it makes you feel like you really are somebody. For a while, anyway.
How about you, Kathy? How long have you been drinking?
Oh, I guess I've been drinking ever since I was 13 or so. I don't remember exactly. But that was only the second or third time I've really gotten drunk. I just drink to keep me from feeling bad. Vodka, usually. It's pretty strong, and no one can smell it on my breath. I always keep a little vodka in my purse. That's what gets me through the day.
Well, why do you drink that way?
To keep from feeling lonesome, I guess. Because I am alone most of the time.
Kathy and her family moved here just before the fall semester began. It was the 5th city she'd lived in since she started school. All the moving around made it impossible for her to keep any close friends. Besides that, she was an only child, and she was left pretty much to herself. People thought she was very mature for her age, but actually she was very withdrawn and eagerly searching for the companionship and attention that her family didn't give her. Kathy's father was often away from home for several days at a time. Kathy's mother always became involved in a lot of volunteer organizations as soon as she moved into a new place. It gave her a sense of belonging and helped her fill in the days when her husband was away. Even though Kathy's mother seemed to be very outgoing, below the surface she was just as shy and withdrawn as Kathy was. But she had discovered years ago that a drink or two helped give her a feeling of confidence. When Kathy's father was on the road, he drank fairly heavily because of the pressures of business. When he was home, he drank fairly heavily to forget business and to forget anything else that happened to worry him. His wife always kept him company. Kathy learned all these lessons early and well. And pretty soon, she also learned that neither her mother nor her father ever noticed that their liquor was disappearing even faster than usual. Mike lived in an apartment with his divorced mother and two younger sisters. His mother worked full-time and dated frequently. Mike felt that his mother was closer to the two girls than to him, and didn't give him his share of her attention. Worse than that, though, he was convinced that he was being dominated by three females, and that he lived in a female environment. When Mike's mother did call him the man of the house, it only meant that he was needed for babysitting, either after school while she was working, or when she went out on dates. Mike knew that life wasn't easy for her, but he wished that sometimes she could see that it wasn't easy for him either. There were times when he felt he just had to blow off a little steam. Downing a few beers with the guys and horsing around was his way of getting away from the female atmosphere at home.
Well, after a couple beers, I felt really great. Like I owned the world.
I knew exactly what he meant. Back when I was drinking, I had a lot of the same weird ideas about what alcohol did and didn't do for you. Just the way most people do, I guess. For instance, I always thought that a few drinks really turned you on. But I found out later that alcohol isn't a stimulant at all. It's a depressant, like a sedative, something that helps put you to sleep. At first, it often makes you think you're stimulated, because it blocks out the inhibitions you normally have. It does that by deadening your central nervous system, so there's no real communication between your brain and the rest of your body. And this starts with the first drink or the first beer you take, even though you might think it isn't affecting you at all. When you keep drinking more and more, because you want to feel better and better, your nervous system gets more and more depressed. And pretty soon you're just out of it. Then there's the problem of sobering up. Like a lot of people, I used to think that cold showers, or black coffee, or walking around would speed up the process. Well, I found out there's just no way to sober up in a hurry. Before it can get out of your system, alcohol first has to go through your liver. And your liver can handle only about half an ounce of alcohol per hour. So the only way to sober up is just to wait it out. The same goes for the hangover. Everybody's got a favorite cure. I used to have a couple myself, but none of them ever works. And having another drink is a especially big mistake. That only prolongs the pain. You just have to suffer through it all, and maybe realize that your body's trying to tell you something. Did you ever think you might have a drinking problem, Mike?
Not me. I only drank the hard stuff that once, when we had the accident. I like beer.
Well, do you know how much alcohol there is in a can of beer?
Not very much.
Well, it has the same amount as there is in a shot of booze, so figure it out. If you put away a six-pack in 1 hour, it's the same as having 6 belts in 1 hour.
No kidding? Well, anyway, I can hold it.
All the time?
Sure. Well, most of the time, anyhow.
And you never thought you might have a drinking problem? Tell me, Kathy, what do you think an alcoholic is?
Well, it's someone who's sick. Like you said, you used to be.
That's right. Alcoholism's a disease, just like heart disease or cancer. But how would you describe an alcoholic?
I guess a real bad one's like those bums you see on Skid Row.
Not necessarily. Some studies have shown that only about half the people on Skid Row have drinking problems, and only about 3 to 5% of all the alcoholics in the country are on Skid Row. About 70% of all alcoholics are married and have jobs, and live pretty much like your neighbors.
You mean an alcoholic's a middle-aged guy who really goes through the booze? Like my father.
I don't know about your father, but another research study showed that young men in their early 20s had the highest incidence of drinking problems. Besides, it's not necessarily how much you drink that shows whether you're an alcoholic or not. It's when you drink, and how you drink, and most important of all, why you drink. And another thing, you spoke about guys. Well, maybe you didn't know that more than 30% of all the alcoholics in the country are women.
I guess I don't know that much about it. How do you describe an alcoholic?
How about two teenagers who have to get drunk in order to get over being kicked out of a disco? At the very least, they've got a drinking problem. How about a high school sophomore who has to drink beer to prove to himself that he's a man? And then the first time he switches to the hard stuff, he wrecks his car and almost kills his date. Or a 16-year-old girl who sneaks a sip from a bottle in her purse because she can't face the world sober.
I never thought of it that way.